So I'll count it off.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3.
Just let's go.
1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the rehearsal room. Nick here.
Aaron's here.
We are going to dive into something that recently came up in the news. Aaron, do you want to give a little bit of backstory here?
Yeah, I think some people, I'm sure many people have seen this. Chino, I believe Marino, I think is how you say his
Moreno?
last name, from Deftones was caught, I believe, somewhere in Houston. Now, this is somebody taking a video of this. As the video starts, you see him already surrounded probably about 3 people. The person comes up with some stuff to sign, and already he is signing a shit ton of stuff that these people have. I can't tell if they're the album sleeves or like a poster or something, but essentially it's all the album covers.
Right.
I would say from the first album all the way to the one that has flamingos on it. I'm not familiar with the title of that one, but... And he's just Chino. And then the other guy comes up, and it's just, as he signs, the guy's flipping to the next one. And at some point, he just says, by the way, I'm done with this shit, guys. I'm not doing this shit anymore. You go on your line, you tell your little friends, blah, 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 blah. And he's perturbed by it. Apparently, this is a day off from tour. It's not, he's not showing up to the venue. This isn't a meet and greet or anything like that. It's his private time, essentially. Sure. And he's being hounded by people. From what I can tell, I think they are fans, but they are also autograph hounds.
Yeah.
It's not getting the one album signed. It's getting several things signed, and there's 6 or 7 of them. And then the irony, the thing that I found most hilarious was after his rant, and he's clearly walking away, one guy goes, "You think you can get some of these for the road?" And he just turns back, and the guy's like, "Cool, man. Thank you." And you're just like, how do you not read the room?
Yeah.
And ultimately, it got me to thinking the relationship between fans and, for lack of a better, rock stars or whatever it is you're a fan of.
Our entertainers.
We'll go, absolutely, across the board.
Yeah.
And just kind of understanding, for lack of a better phrase, maybe your role in all of this. And just kind of respectfulness. And that goes both ways. I think,
sure.
Sometimes we find, rock stars who can treat people like shit for no reason. You know what I mean?
And I mean, those are also well known,
Absolutely.
well documented. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just, like I said, it just got me. So that was a topic I had always kind of had in my head. But, with the recent thing as that, it got me to thinking about some of the other ones and just kind of discussing it with you. Just where do you see, fandom and where does that line? Is it different for different people? Is it also just a respect thing from human beings, despite the fact that they may sit on a big stage?
I think ultimately it's gonna, again, easy answer. It's about respect.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Respect the person and they'll respect you, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
But also, I think it does kind of change from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not toured to the extent that Deftones have.
Sure.
Nor am I on any type of level that they are. But I think it's pretty obvious that when they're out and about on their own, which I think that's what Chino was on, right?
I believe so. They're not on tour. I don't believe this was like a tour stop, and even if it was like a day off.
Right. So I think because there are the types of fans that will kind of obsess over the details of how much a band tours and when their stops are and where, right?
Yeah, right.
They'll also be aware of when their days off are.
Which is crazy to me. That was the other part of this video, not to interrupt, just to say,
sure.
to what you're kind of talking about. It's how do they even know he's there?
Again, they're so in the mix, down in the whole mix of it all, that they just happen to find out.
Crazy.
And also we're at a time when people who work with the bands are on social media as much as anybody else. So something might slip out somewhere, and there's people who pay that much attention.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not gonna assume that these people weren't fans, but it sounds like they were more autograph hounds more than anything, especially being that kind of obsessive about getting all the things signed.
And every one of them had the same stack of things to be signed.
Yeah, so
it wasn't one guy had a CD.
Yeah. So that does sound like somebody who's gonna flip it at some point, and whatnot. But I think if a person's gonna be off or whatever, give them that time
Yeah,
off,
yeah.
right? Like there's a line that shouldn't be crossed, and that's one of those lines, I think.
Yeah,
you know?
it's just remembering that they're human beings.
That, yes. Because I know ultimately at some point, and actually ultimately the whole thing is don't have these types of idols and don't look up to these people this way or whatever, you know?
For sure,
Like,
yes.
don't become so fanatic that you do this.
Right.
But people still do.
Oh,
For
for
whatever
sure.
reasons, right? For whatever reasons, they connect with the entertainment that this person's putting out and they want some sort of connection.
For sure.
But they don't necessarily owe you
Right.
any time.
Thank you.
Right? They don't owe you any time. You're not gonna come up and say something so astounding that they're gonna be like, hey, let's spend the rest of the day together. Right? Like that's not gonna happen.
No.
What they want is quiet, right? They want to maybe find a cool place to eat, somewhere to unwind, and then go back to wherever they're going and then do the rest of their tour, right? And I think this is true not just of musicians, but like actors
Oh,
and
absolutely.
easily anybody else who's in the public sphere of entertainment.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, I don't know. This one was weird because as we mentioned before this, there's also a lot of entertainers who treat their audiences like shit,
Yeah.
non-appreciative of the people that kind of go see them play or perform or what
Yeah,
have you, you know? Yeah, this is a weird one.
Like to your point, I remember seeing an interview with Dio one time, and I'm not a huge Dio guy, but nonetheless, I thought that one thing I would definitely say about him, I don't think you can find many people who say anything bad about the guy. He seemed like a real stand-up dude.
Sure.
He talked about his time, and it was a kind of a part of a whole documentary, and part of it was about fan interactions, and he was talking about the fact of like, I believe he was an elf, right, with Richie Blackmore.
Yeah,
Was that it?
yeah.
Okay. So he's saying like, look, I love Richie, and we had our moments, but he said he was very aloof with fans. Lots of fans, especially in that sense, he's a guitar god. People want to know him. They want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he said he was very aloof with fans and could be pretty, push off on a lot of them where they thought they could get a moment. And he said, and that's fine. Richie's entitled to be Richie however he wants to be.
Sure.
He said, but for me, it was always one of those things where I said to myself, that's not what I want to do. And he gave an example, somewhere like Sweden or Norway, he put on a show, and by the time the last train, I guess it like snowed in, and by the time the last train, it couldn't get there. So all the people that had to take that train were going to have to spend the night in the venue in order to leave. And he kind of looked at the band and the crew and said, hey, do we have tables that we could set up? And they were like, well, yeah. And he's like, set up some tables. Let's get some autographs going.
Yeah.
And, you just think to yourself, didn't need to do that. Could have easily just gotten the van, gone right to the hotel and said, hey, not my problem. And you just go, that's a swell thing. Now, I don't think everybody has to do that.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
I'm not saying everyone's obligated or you have to. But I can't imagine that you go, I took 2 hours out of my day to do all this for some people who are going to spend the next 8 hours in here just to see me perform. What the hell? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I just think like when you hear those stories, no wonder people love Dio. No wonder people adore him the way they do. You know what I mean?
I also think, not to interrupt, I
No,
also
please.
think situations like that or experiences like that are so, while they do happen a lot, they're still
yes.
few and far
Yes.
between, right?
Yes.
I think famously Kevin Smith has even said, he'll stay until the last person gets a signature, which cool. But again, that should not be expected, right? It
Absolutely
shouldn't
not
be
expected. Yes.
right? It shouldn't be a thing that like, oh, every time I see a famous person,
Right.
I'm going to be able to get something signed or a picture or anything, right? And we live in Los Angeles where, people already think that movie stars and rock stars are walking around amongst us, They could not be any more wrong,
Right.
But yeah, so when it does happen, when it's happened to me that I run into somebody who's known, I'm always like, holy shit, that's that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I keep it to myself and, I'll say it to my wife or vice versa. She'll say it to me. And you will be like, oh yeah, we saw him at this store, at that store, right? Like they're human like us.
Right.
Which again, that's the whole thing.
Absolutely.
They're human like us, right?
Yes.
Like, which sounds silly to say and remind ourselves, but some of these folks, they just want time off.
Yeah.
And of course, there are those entertainers who make it a point to be out there.
Absolutely. Yes,
I
yes.
think there are some comedians out there who make it a point to like party with their fans
Absolutely,
afterwards
yeah,
and
sure,
stuff like
sure.
that, which that's fine and all, but it shouldn't be expected across the board. you know?
No. I mean, I have The one time I remember, I can't think of his name now. He was on that show, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Wore the glasses, kind of has a high-pitched voice. Very funny guy. I think he's always enjoyed him, and especially on that show. He was, of all places, he was at the 5-Star Bar one time before a show. And I had come in, and I walked in, and there he was. And I'm like, oh, my God. Like, and I just thought, I'm going to approach him. I just said, hey, you're so-and-so, right? And he said, yep. And I was like, oh, dude, big fan. I see you on Whose Line Is It Anyway. I've heard you on a few podcasts. Just big fan. I love your stuff, man. Thank you very much. Put his beer down, and he left.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's enough for me. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Yeah,
like I get to say I interacted with him, but I also didn't try to interrupt his day or be like, so we're going to share a beer now, right?
Right. Hey, I'll buy you your next one.
I've got 50 questions. Oh, let's get a selfie together, and on and on and on. It just felt like, and I could see even in him, and maybe it's just a matter of maybe he was in the 5-Star Bar and realizing like, oh, this is not my crowd right now. I don't know what I'm doing in here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And maybe just just whatever. But I feel like that's always the thing, I'm sure you and I know have been to like meet and greets.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to see how certain people take them and how certain people go further than they need. Oh, well, I have 50 things I need you to sign, or, and it's like, you hate that they have to be a dick, but when they lay the ground rules and they're like, look, man, he's only signing one thing.
Yep.
You don't get to stand up there and ask him 50 questions, all these other things. And people are like, oh, what a dick. And it's like, well, remember, there's hundreds of us lined up here, man.
Yeah.
You're again. I think, and you can speak to this to some degree as an artist. I think the biggest compliment you can give any artist is to just say thank you and say I appreciate your art.
For sure.
Beyond that, what can you really say? As you said, I'm not going to say anything so profound that they're like, oh my God, here's my address. This is my security code. You're going to be my roadie for the rest of my life.
Right.
You know, and especially if you get to a certain echelon, I imagine there's like an inner circle thing going on anyway, in which I can only let certain people in. I don't want to let just anybody in,
Yeah,
and remembering also, just because I love your album doesn't mean that the two of us have a whole shitload of other things in common,
Right.
And I just think the audacity of a fan to think that they are owed anything beyond if I paid for my concert ticket, then I am owed that. I'm here for the show. I want to see a show. You want to be an asshole, Axel, and decide that you're going to smoke cigarettes and drink, when the show is supposed to start at 10 and it's 11:30 because you're not feeling it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or Morrissey because the air conditioner's too high or they spelled your name wrong on the fucking marquee. Fuck you, asshole. I'm sorry. We all get to say that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But beyond that,
I think the complaining about things that happen like that, that's fair. From a fan's perspective,
certainly.
Because we're paying money. Sometimes we have to save up and whatnot. But because it's nearly impossible to sit down and say these are the regulations of being a fan.
I agree. Yes.
Right. Like that's never gonna be a thing, right?
No.
So when like meet and greets happen and they say like, hey, only 2 items, 1 item, whatever.
Right.
That's of course fair because I have been to situations like that where people bring in like 10 things.
Yeah.
And they get turned away at the door and they're like, well, fuck this fucking dude. I'm not a fan anymore.
Right.
Okay, that's all it took? Right? Like, that's what it fucking
I've been a fan
took?
for life and now I can't do this. Fuck you.
Yeah. So it's like, it gets kind of silly at a point, right?
Yes.
And I get it. I get the argument of like not having idols like this.
Yeah.
I of course get it. But because we're human,
Yes.
there are people out there that touch us, and that speak to us, I should say.
Of course.
And in ways that maybe others can't.
Yes.
Just because of the output that they have.
For sure.
It's gonna always be an enticing thing to be like, I wonder where that comes from, or I wonder how the inspiration came to them for this that motivated me, or that inspired me, or affected me in this manner.
Sure.
That's always a thing that has actually like made me wonder. Right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But yeah, again, because these people are ultimately regular folks who just happen to play a guitar a way I can't, or write songs the way I can.
Right.
Act in a movie or a show when I know I can't, and I happen to enjoy it to this degree. It doesn't mean that I get to come in and trample over their fucking life. Right. And then make a big scene and then complain about it. And then have it be a thing where others feel obligated to join in my criticisms of them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because that's what happens now. We get to dogpile on people because we agree with the person who's been wronged or is doing the wrong. Right. which again, that's just how society and culture go nowadays. Right?
Unfortunately, yes. And again, look, the guys who want these autographs in this certain example, of course, they're easy targets. It's easy to look at them and go, you're probably not even real fans, or you're just autograph hounds. And be that as it may, I just think that, again, it's really just about respecting each other as human beings.
Sure.
I remember it was Penn Jillette was telling a story one time about he was really good friends with Lou Reed. And they'd hang out all the time, but he said people would constantly come up to Lou Reed and ask for an autograph, and he would just be a complete asshole. Fuck you, get away from me, and it would turn into this thing every time. And he'd always just be like, Lou, what the fuck? Like, just sign the fucking, nah, fuck him, and blah, 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 blah. And he said one time he was out with Jay Leno, and it was the complete opposite. Say what you will about Jay, however you may feel about the guy, but it's just every single person that came over wanted autograph. Yeah, no problem. Picture. Yeah, I got you, no problem. And he never interrupted the conversation. It just kept going and going and going. And I remember him saying, he's like, the thing I learned was Jay's interaction was much shorter than Lou's.
Right.
And the fan walked away happy.
Yeah.
And you just go, well, then what the fuck? Penn and Teller, I think this stopped after COVID, and I don't think they've ever reinstituted it. But after every show, they did the same thing like a Kevin Smith. They would come out, and you could get pictures, autographs, whatever, and they stayed there till the last person, that paid to see their show. And for them, they felt like, no, this is the least we can do for our fans.
Right.
Because we want to show them thank you for what you've done. And again, I do not think everyone has to do that. And also, the level of your celebrity, I think, also has a lot to do with that. Penn and Teller may be very popular and people may love them, but maybe they're only dealing with 20 or 30 people that want to get an autograph, and people who probably are into them only want an autograph and just say, hey, I'm a fan. Whereas opposed to if you're like a Beyonce, I saw some video where she was performing in Brazil and a guy nearly pulled her off the stage. Now, I don't think he was going to try to hurt her, but his obsession and love for her could have easily hurt her.
Of course. Yeah. There's always, the level of entertainer.
Yes.
Also scales upward with the level of, quote,
obsession.
fanaticism,
Yeah, right.
So, because how many videos have we come across where somebody, saunters on stage, interrupts the performance, and then gets either knocked out or beat on by the band, right? Or security takes them down or something.
Yeah.
It's weird because I've been, and I don't know how genuine this might have been, but I went to a Slayer meet and greet one time.
Okay. I could do one of those too.
And for all intents and purposes, Tom Araya was the only one who was stoked to see anybody.
Yes.
And he always seemed like he was excited. And again, I don't know how genuine that is, but it seemed genuine. It seemed honest.
I think the sense I got was like he enjoyed the spectacle of it all.
Yeah,
Look at these rabid, crazy-ass Slayer
right,
fans.
we did this,
Yeah.
And, of course, Kerry King, incredibly standoffish.
Yes.
Jeff Hanneman at the time was nice, but you could tell he'd rather be somewhere else.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
And at that time, I think it was Paul Ballstaff.
Yes, same for myself, yeah.
It was like, okay, he's being cool, but he's not saying much.
No.
Jeff Hanneman, again, would rather be somewhere else, but here he is.
Yes.
Kerry King does not want to be here.
Yeah.
And he's making it known, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
Like, I hate doing this shit.
Yes.
Tom Araya, hey, man, big old smile.
Yes.
Cracks a joke, maybe, and then signs your stuff, and you're on your way.
He shook my hand and it said, thank you. And I said, thank you. And he said, thank you. And I was, oh, thank you. And he just laughed at me. Because that's the first time I'd ever met anybody that was even a star, especially Slayer.
Yeah.
I was 17 years old, and I was losing my fucking mind, dude. So, yeah, I probably looked like a fucking moron at that point. You know what I mean? And that's probably what he was laughing at. So, yes, I know exactly
so
what you mean.
like there's the people who obviously appreciate the people being there for them. And again, there are probably thousands of them out there.
Yeah.
But because we don't really hear about those, because we're going to hear about the bad situations.
Of course,
more, right?
of course. Because they're the rarity, ultimately, right?
Yeah,
they are the thing that shines. When it goes right 1,000 times, no one gives a shit. It's only when it goes wrong
when it
the
goes
one
wrong.
time.
Exactly, yeah. So another one I wanted to bring up was Doyle of the famous Misfits. A few years back, when he was doing meet and greets, he also very publicly said he hates doing meet and greets because of the fans.
Right.
And people, of course, commented saying like, hey, man, we're paying a lot of money to fucking meet and greet your ass.
Yeah.
we get it if you don't want to be here, but don't do this.
Right.
You know,
right.
like don't fucking charge us this money. Like what the hell, right?
Right. So that's why you're giving us our money back, right, Doyle?
Exactly,
Yeah.
right.
And by the way, great salesman, by the way.
Dude,
Boy,
right?
do I hate meeting these assholes. Anyway, my album comes out next week.
Yeah,
Make sure you buy
exactly.
it.
Which, on the flip side, you have other goofy people like Jerry Only, who one time when Amy and I went to go see the Misfits when they came back with Danzig.
All right.
So it was at Riot Fest in Colorado.
Right on.
After the Misfits played to who knows how many thousands of people,
Right.
in front of us, right after the show, is fucking Jerry Only signing shit,
Right
taking
on.
pictures.
Right
I don't
on.
know how long he was there
Sure,
because
sure.
like he did pass like somewhere near where I was. But again, you don't have to do this.
No.
You're gonna get mobbed.
Yeah.
I think you're aware of that.
Yeah.
But you're still gonna put yourself there. That's cool as hell.
Yeah,
I
it
think
is.
people will appreciate that
Oh.
forever. You know. And again, I know we wish everybody were like that.
Sure.
But the truth of it is, not everyone is
No.
willing to put themselves in that situation because they have their own anxieties, they have their own fears. Because
Absolutely.
sometimes fans cannot be trusted.
There's another one.
Right,
I
where-
mean, we know rock stars get killed sometimes. by
That's
their-
another thing. Yeah,
I'm
right.
your number one fan. You know?
Yeah, and now they're writing weird music and
Right. Well, I just think like you're absolutely correct. It's like I think maybe that's it. Is never expect it.
Yeah.
Always accept it when it happens.
Right.
And live in that because to the rock star or to the entertainer, I would say it is time out of your day, and I get that. And again, you're not obligated. I'm not saying to do it, but do know for the most part, while it is 2 seconds out of your day, it's a story for a lifetime. For a fan.
exactly.
It really is something that they will get to tell forever. By the way, good and bad. You know, that Slayer one, I had the same experience. It was amazing. I loved it. And it was like, yes, despite their standoffishness, I still got to see Kerry King in the flesh. I have his signature.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I did a meet and greet with Ozzy one time. And as I've professed on other podcasts, I absolutely love him. He will never make me not love him. But
Sure,
it was when he did his I'm done, and then realized, fuck that, I'm back, and did it had Old L.A. Tonight on it. It wasn't a very Osmosis record.
Osmosis, yeah.
It wasn't very good. KLOS did a thing at the, shows my age, the Tower Records on Sunset.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And another place, by the way, I got to meet Danzig, and he was very nice. So we stood in line. I was just stoked. I couldn't believe I was going to get to meet Ozzy Osbourne. They told it was two minimum. So I had my Ozzy CD, and my buddy was like, dude, he gave me the booklet out of his Black Sabbath cassette. Could I get those signed? Fuck yeah. Don't even worry about it, bro. I was so excited. And we got inside. They are all at a table. It's him, Zach Wilde. I don't know who was the bass player at the time. Might have been Trujillo, but probably not. And I don't remember who was playing drums at that time.
Yeah.
They were at a table, and the way it was set up was you can't be within 5 feet of the table. Like 3 feet of the table.
I remember this. Yeah.
So you handed your shit to a guy who walked over to the table, put it at the end of the table. They're just having a chit chat. They're just talking amongst themselves while they're just not even looking, signing, passing it down to the next person while you're just moving over. And then you get to the end and some guy hands it to you and you walk out.
Yep.
Now, again, that's their prerogative. They can do whatever they want.
Sure.
I don't care. But man, oh man, was I really disappointed as a fan who thought he got to maybe say, I love you, Ozzy, shake a hand, whatever.
I know ultimately a lot of people just want to say that much to somebody. You know,
at that time, I mean, what more is there? Again, I probably wanted to. Yeah, look, I have no illusion, and I would love it if I said, I'm a huge fan, Ozzy. And he goes, well, then guess what? You just want a free trip to my house and you can stay there forever. Of course I would love that. But I have no illusion of that.
You had that story of when Ozzy met Paul McCartney and he couldn't speak, right?
He looked like a child.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people would be in that situation, especially with somebody that they really admired, right?
Sure.
You lose what you want to say, and then you kind of just mutter all over yourself.
No doubt.
Sepultura was at Tower Records when it was over in Monterey Park.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So I remember my brother and I were just kind of looking around the store, and we had seen the flyers.
Right on.
And then, I had the cover for Roots.
Okay.
And it said in-store.
Ugh.
And we were like, well, when is this in-store?
Right.
And like one of the people that was kind of arranging everything, they're like, yeah, that's today. In fact, it's gonna be like in 15 minutes. So, whatever you guys gotta buy it now and get out because we're gonna have a bunch of people coming in. Right. So, we bought like a stupid magazine, went out, and then right back into the front of the store.
Nice.
Where we lined up, and we met fucking Sepultura.
Nice.
You know. So they could not have been any fucking nicer.
I'm not surprised.
You know? This is again Max, Andreas, fucking Paulo, and Igor. They were absolutely stoked that people even went.
That's cool.
Because Tower Monterey Park at that time, I don't think it got as much like notice. Yeah. You know, because it's in a neighborhood people just don't frequent from anywhere else, right?
Especially the big one on Sunset. So it's
exactly, right? So like the fact that people had known about it and were showing up, and then afterwards when my brother and I were in the parking lot waiting for our bus to go back home, we were like, holy shit, we didn't know there was this many Sepultura fans here in East LA, you know? But yeah, it was a cool experience, and again, maybe anecdotal of a positive experience.
Sure.
Because I've certainly had negative ones, you know, where I'm at a meet and greet and I'm not even there to meet or greet the person. I was actually helping out the event.
Oh, interesting.
And they were like, "What the fuck are you looking at?" You know, they're like, "Fucking, are you one of these fucking fanboys who's such a fanboy and you just want to get closer to the celebrities?" And I'm like, "God damn, man, I'm just trying to make some money." You know?
Right?
Yeah. I used to, you know, I'll probably fall back on this part of my life a few more times throughout the life of this podcast. I used to work at a pet store out in West LA,
right,
where many a celebrity would come in, you know, and we had our positive experiences where they were like, "Hey, man, you know, I'm that person,"
right?
You know, so shower me with adoration, right. And many people were happy to oblige. But then there were also the times when somebody would walk in and then kind of just quietly put their finger to their mouth and be like, "Don't tell anybody that I'm here," you know? Sure. And of course, we respected that because, firstly, I was working.
Right.
And secondly, we don't want to alert a whole store of people looking for cat food like, "Hey, that's that person," you know?
Right.
So, but yeah, and again, it goes back to the respect.
I think that's ultimately it, right? I mean, it's just reminding yourself that they're human beings.
Yeah.
They may have sung a song you love. They may have written something that touched your heart. And those things are understandable. And I get that. But it doesn't give you the rights and it doesn't take away their rights, you know?
Right.
And it's just being respectful. And, you know, certainly in this video, reading the room. If he's yelling at you that he doesn't want to do this anymore, you don't go, "Oh, can you get 3 more before you leave?" What the fuck, dude? You know, like, and it's just like, I don't know. Again, it just, some of these other videos that I had seen, it just seems to be the smugness, the audacity that these people have, and you just go like, dude. I mean, it just seems strange to me because, again, I will not pretend that I don't want to have, like, look, it's very pathetic, but I'm willing to tell it, quite frankly, is I remember one of the first times I got to see Wino and Scott Kelly when they would tour together, with their acoustic stuff. I saw them at the Viper Room. I knew Scott Kelly was a big Raider fan.
Yeah.
I wore a Raider jersey to a show. I've never done that before. I did it solely for the purpose to just be like, he was standing outside smoking a cigarette. I walked outside. I happened to be there too, and it's just kind of like, "Hey man, how about them Raiders?" Right? You know, like if he were to come up to me, I'd be like, "What? Oh, this shirt? I didn't even know I had it on."
This
like,
whole thing.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like, yes, I did. I wanted to, because he was somebody at the time that, you know, was in a band and that I looked up to, and it's just like, yes, again. In no way did I think it would result in, "Here's my address and we're going to be the best of friends forever." But nonetheless, if it was just a way to say hi or to get a picture with him, then yes, it was worth it for me. And I've been respectful of that. There have been times where it's very clear, this person not interested right now. Okay, then I'm not going to. And I think that's it too, is like, it's very easy to, and this goes with a lot of things, but in the context of what we're talking about, it's very easy to judge Chino. I know that in the past, you know, he can be a little bit of a prima donna in certain aspects.
Sure.
But, you know, as somebody has said in other ways, if I'm judged on my worst day, I'm going to look like an asshole too.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what Chino was going through that day. Maybe he got some bad news before he stepped out of that car with all these people hounding him.
But also,
you know what I mean? It's just
also, it's not our business to
know
that, right?
And I don't need to know it. What I'm saying is, for people who walk away and go, "What a fucking asshole!" You just like, whoa. You don't know what kind of day he might be having.
Right. Right.
You know, for that happened to me, and I won't say who she is. Though I guess people could kind of figure it out, but she's very prominent in our world of heavy metal, and especially as a female, very in that way.
Yeah.
She was doing merch for a big event show that I went to at the House of Blues. She was doing it for like St. Vitus, Kylesa, and a couple other bands. I walked up to the merch table, and I was standing there, and she's just folding shirts. She's not looking directly at me, but she knows I'm standing there.
Yeah.
I'm waiting. She's saying absolutely nothing. I'm getting total cold shoulder from her, and then finally just goes, "Yes." And I'm like, can I get the St. Vitus one in extra large? Sure. Like, she couldn't be bothered, you know? Now, it'd be very easy for me to take to the airwaves, if you will, of social media. This chick, everybody likes her, but she's a total bitch. Look, I don't know what her day was.
Right.
By the way, being a merch person some days could probably be pretty fucking shitty with some of the assholes you got to deal with.
Yep.
For all I know, she's just having a bad day. Now, I didn't make you have that bad day. No reason to take it out on me. But maybe she's not taking it out on me. It's always kind of remembering that you never know what that person might be going through in their day.
Right.
Now, that doesn't make it okay when something like, even though I absolutely love her and she could do this to me anytime, when Bjork attacked the the Japanese reporter for asking about her new album, and she's grabbing her hair and swinging it around like it's WWE. But you go, well, we know Bjork doesn't always do this, so she's probably super stressed out. She just wants to get home. She really doesn't want to be bothered right now.
Right.
There are other ways to express that, Bjork, by the way, and you have an amazing native tongue. Try that. But, it's just
unfortunately, that's how it came out.
It is. And I imagine she is embarrassed by that video and says, I would have done it differently. I should have done it differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, to judge these people on, even the video I'm watching, it's only like 40 seconds. I don't know what happened beforehand. How do I know before that guy got up to Chino with the camera, one of the guys having him sign it just goes, hey, man, can you hurry up and get this done?
Right.
Right. I don't, you know what I mean? There's a million things. So it's like, this isn't again, not a judgment thing. It's just, I find it interesting. Our relationship to these people, whether, in every way of entertainers. Go ahead.
What else makes it, I think, a little bit more difficult is that there are economies built on collecting and getting signatures,
Absolutely. Yes.
So I think trying to consider everything we've kind of touched on with the fact that people make some real money off of signatures and things that they can collect, it's a lot harder, I think, to then have any sort of respect for the individual in question, right? Because at some point it's just like, you're no longer a person. You're a big walking, talking money sign.
Yes. I see. Yeah, I'm with you 100. Yes.
So like,
you're treating them almost like they're a piece of meat.
It's
just hurry up, give me
commodity.
what I want. So right. Like you're no longer, like you said, you're no longer a person. I don't even care about your music. I don't give a shit what you say. I need this signature so I can go make money. Let's go. Hurry up. And I got 50 of these things.
I forget who it is that makes all like the sports memorabilia now. Mm-hmm. They there was a football thing in Florida like a couple years ago where I think it was Tom, what's his name?
Brady.
Uh-huh. This is how much of a football fan I am. That guy, he was supposed to appear and have a signature table, basically. But the way it was held was like, you would come in and tell the company, this is what I want signed. And then they would either accept it or deny it. And then on the day of, he's got a whole table full of merchandise that he's going to autograph. Right. So the controversy there was that his signature didn't match previous versions of his signature. Because he was just like, whatever. Like, I know what's going to happen with these, right?
Well, and I imagine you get to 50 and your hand is...
And your hand is going to cramp up. Right. So, people were pissed and whatnot because then they couldn't sell it on the internet and stuff like that. And again, it's like, this dude is... I have no love for Tom Brady. I don't care one way or another. But
as a Raider fan, I definitely have no love for him, even though he's now running my team. But anyway, sorry.
Just to be upset that this guy knows what the outcome of all this merchandise is going to be anyway. Maybe out of the hundreds of items there, maybe 10 being generous. 10% of all that stuff is going to be kept in a person's home and not sold.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
But most of that's going to get sold.
Yeah.
Most of that's going to get sold online.
Absolutely,
the next day, right? Because it's going to be certified. It's going to be,
yes.
it's going to have its bona fides. So like, just be happy with what you got, man. Like,
Yeah, because it feels like the experience of meeting him would be cooler than getting his autograph.
right.
Right?
And again, you want the story. Like, hey, man, I was able to go up and shake this person's hand.
There you go.
Tell them that I appreciate
Yes.
everything they've done and walk away.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they walk away with a smirk like this fucking dork, you know?
Probably.
But I'm the one smiling.
Yeah.
Right? And ultimately, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I want to smile. I don't care if they remember me.
I agree.
I'm gonna remember.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's a lot of it, and you're right. A video that I saw was I think it was Nicki Minaj. She was doing autographs, and some guy, she just looked at him. She's like, "What was the name of my first demo
Yeah.
or first mixtape?"
Yeah.
And he was like, she said, "Yeah, you ain't getting no signature."
Yeah. See,
You know, like I know what you're doing here.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, yeah, it just seems. And I get, look, we live in a world where money is everything. I totally understand it.
Sure.
But I also understand, I appreciate that somebody would say, look, man, this isn't the market I'm a part of.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I want to give Chino the benefit of the doubt. I do think if people had come up to him and just said, hey, I'm a big fan, I don't think he has this reaction. I think his reaction is, I'm sitting here signing 15 of the same things that 3 of you all have.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to think for a second that this isn't anything more than you're going to turn around and flip this shit?
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm a human being. I'm not a machine. I'm not here to do this. It'd be one thing if it's like, I put out my new book, I go over to Random House, and they put all the books out, and I sign them all for the first 500 copies. Like, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I just think those kind of things, like, for me, I'd rather have the experience of getting to shake a hand, say I'm a big fan, and I appreciate everything that you've given us in your art, whatever that may be,
I just had a
over
thought.
anything else. But
I
please.
just had a thought.
Yeah.
If entertainers decided to, pop trivia questions on people coming up to them, I think I'd be into that. I would super be into that. Like, hey, name my, the first 3 songs that I wrote before I actually recorded an album or whatever. Like, that would be awesome.
It would.
But you know why? Because how many times have people in the music scene complained about, quote, punishers?
Oh, yeah.
Fanboys who come up and like, hey, let me tell you what you're doing wrong.
Right,
like,
right,
you
right.
should do this. Or like, hey, let me tell you about that.
Name
or
3 songs.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, the ever famous, you're wearing the shirt, name 3 songs. What if it was the musician who you're trying to hound for an autograph who came at you and were like, oh, you want my autograph or you want some FaceTime with me?
Right.
Name 3 songs.
Yeah.
Right?
Why not?
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
Because I think.
Well, funny as it, I did see a video. Guy from Third Eye Blind, which I was like, wow, I didn't even know, But he was hounded in an airport, and the guy was like, hey, I want to. And he's like, okay, dude, like, come on, man, I'm here at the airport. He said, okay, I'll tell you what, name a song off her 3rd album. And the guy loses it. He said, are you fucking kidding me? Do you know how much money I've paid to see you live? Like, whoa.
Yeah.
Why do you think that means he has to sign your shit?
Right.
You know? And it's just like, well, if you're that big of a fan, that shouldn't be a hard
be an
answer
issue.
either,
Should not be an
by the way.
issue.
And the guy goes, okay, all I'm saying is I know people sell this shit online, and I don't want to be a part of it.
Right.
But if you have something, I will sign it right now.
For sure.
And he did what I have always heard is an interesting trick to do. I don't know that it always works, but is he essentially said, what's your name? And the guy said, Dave. Now, I don't know if he did this or not because the video cuts off, but I have heard that is kind of a trick you can do is go, what's your name? Dave. Okay, and you sign to Dave, and you put your name. Because unless you're Dave, you don't want to buy an autograph that says to Dave.
Right.
Because then you get to hang it in your house, and everybody goes, who the fuck's Dave?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, I like that as a tactic also. To me, it kind of goes to the quiz. If I'm signing an autograph and I say, and who is this to?
Yes.
And you go,
Yeah.
Nick, cool, you're getting one. But if you go, oh, well, I just want your signature. Well, you're definitely not getting one.
Right. There was
Because if you care, don't you want it to say you?
Yeah.
And
Well, the last time I went and asked for an autograph was at the Los Angeles Comic Book Convention.
Okay.
I went with one of my brothers, and we went to, again, I am a big Conan the Barbarian fan. One of the artists for the recent comic book that came out, but the person's name is Dan Panosian.
Okay.
Now, I know his artwork, like from before, before the Blind Times, right?
Hold up, write that down. Before the Blind Times.
That's my next album.
I think that's the album, man.
So like he was even a little like, but you're blind, and I had to tell him like, yeah, but I know your work.
Interesting.
Right? And I said, all I want is a poster and your autograph, right? Just sign it. And I think he must have like looked at his his assistant, and they were like, "Do you just want the autograph?" And I'm like, "No. Make it to Nick."
Fuck yeah.
Firstly, it's Conan the Barbarian.
Nice.
And it's gonna say to Nick.
Dude.
I want that.
Yeah.
Right? Like I want
Of
that's
course
for
you
me.
would. Yes,
right?
yes.
And like she signed it and everything, and I thanked them, whatever, right?
Very cool.
But yeah, like me in the past, even I've always wanted the thing to be personal, right?
Sure.
Because that's my interaction. It's a personal moment. It's the only time I'm ever gonna have with these people. I'm not expecting to ever run into them again. So
Yes.
why wouldn't I want that story of like, yeah, the signature was made out to me.
Well,
you know?
you remind me of one we shared. You and I, for lack of a better word, got to meet Jake the Snake.
Oh yes, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I mean, for context for everybody, our wives are crazy people who like to run marathons from time to time.
Yep.
They ran the Los Angeles Marathon.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to Nick and I think our wives, Comic-Con was happening at the same time. The ladies had finished running. We were headed back to the parking lot to leave. We are standing at a crosswalk, and I look to my left, and I realize, that's Jake the Snake. What the fucking fuck? And I go, dude, you're Jake the Snake. I said, Nick, it's Jake the Snake. And the two of us are like, we might as well have been 13 years old at that moment. And, I remember he made fun. I have a nose piercing. He said, is that what your wife drags you around about? And I'm like, oh my God, I just got insulted by Jake the Snake. I could die right now. Happy man. Look, this is so amazing. And he could not have been nicer. He was so cool. We both said how much we loved him.
Yep.
We were so happy to see him. This was also during his recovery from his addictions and so on and so forth, and how happy we were to see him doing better and on and on and on. And I remember the sense I got was almost like he was like, I really appreciate this, but you understand if you want more, I'm at Comic-Con, you need to pay. And,
Well,
and I understood that. And
I remember
we just
I said, hey, can I get a picture with you?
Okay.
And he said, well, I'm going to be inside there.
That's right.
I'm going to be in there doing all that stuff.
And understandably so. No problem. You don't bother me with. But again, we didn't get an autograph.
Nope.
We didn't get a picture.
Right.
And we have a story for life.
Story, yeah.
That's all I'm good. I'm totally good. Those other things would have been amazing.
Sure.
If you'd have handed me the bag and let me hold the snake, that would have been cool
Of course,
too.
that
You know
banging
what I
the
mean?
snake, yeah,
Absolutely. But it's like we both got to have that experience nonetheless. That sticks with me for the rest of my life. The surprise of looking to your left and there's, oh my God, that's Jake the Snake.
The second part of that story is that not only did I feel Jake the Snake's gigantic hand pat me on the shoulder, but he also helped me across the street, if you remember.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
So, again, I have a great fucking story of one of my old wrestling heroes, Jake the Snake Roberts, helping my blind ass walk the crosswalk.
And again, way cooler than any autograph.
Way cooler. Way cooler.
Yeah.
I still kind of think back on that time, and I'm like, fuck, man, that was so fucking cool.
We're
we're waiting
random.
for our wives to finish up, and we're like, by the way, Jake the Snake right there.
Yeah, it was like they felt like they had accomplished something with running. We felt the same by getting to meet Jake the Snake.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the same accomplishment as far as I was concerned. I mean, I remember the time the 5-star bar again, Gilbert Godfrey.
That's right.
Just for those who don't know, this 5-star bar is downtown LA. And next to it, or at least a little bit down from it, was this very indie theater.
Yeah.
And they were playing his documentary. And Nick and I were going there for a show. We're walking down the sidewalk, and we see this it was like a huddled mass because they were around him, his wife and family members or friends. But this little hunched over person, and I'm looking, and I go, oh shit! I go, Nick, fucking Gilbert Godfrey. Now we didn't go over to him; he was with his family. We didn't. We just kind of said, hey, Gilbert, and he waved. The family smiled, and it's like. That's what I wanted. He understands if we're yelling, Gilbert, we love him.
Right.
He appreciates that. The wife smiled. I remember seeing her smile like, that's so wonderful. Like, these people are, woohoo, we love you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, I think shortly died.
He passed away shortly
after that. So it was just this, again, I know Nick just got done telling you how just because we live in LA doesn't mean we run into stars, and we just told you these amazing stories of these celebrities we run into. But it is just one of those things. And look, Amoeba Records is another one. Like I think I went there like 4 different times in a row, and every time I went, there was somebody there. I was like, holy shit, that actor's in this, or I saw the person from here. One time, Flea and Fishbone came in. It was very weird, And again, it's just like, what am I going to do? One of the neater experiences I ever had. Vacation Vinyl, Electric Wizard had played out here in LA for the first time in a long time. They had just played Santa Ana, and they were going to play LA the next night. And that morning, they showed up at Vacation Vinyl, and you could get autographs. And I remember telling my son, we're going to go. We got to get there early. It's fucking Electric Wizard. I'm telling you, dude, that place is small. If we get there early, we're going to, that way we don't have to stand in this big long line. I think we got there, because it is who I am too, probably an hour and a half before they ever opened. Long enough that we went down and got breakfast, came back, and the same 2 people that were already in the line were still there and let us get right back in front. They had no problem with it. And by the time they opened the door, there were 8 of us.
Oh.
Yeah. But it was really cool. And one of the coolest things was I happened to be, and despite my Scott Kelly story, this was not strategic. I just happened to be wearing my Warhorse shirt.
Nice.
Got in line and signed. The bass and drummer are just kind of replaceable people. They're not, it's mainly Just and his wife,
Liz, yeah.
And Liz. Thank you. And got to Liz, she signed, thank you. Oh no problem. And got to Just, and he starts like, hey, he's like, we're playing tonight. I go, oh, I just saw you in Santa Ana last night. I go, oh, right on, dude. Thank you very much. Da-da-da. He goes, dude, Warhorse. We toured with them. And I was like, I've read about this. This is amazing. And dude, regaling me with, again, there's only 8 of us, so there was anybody mad. He starts telling me some stories about their touring and so on and so forth, and I'm just like, fuck this autograph. That's the coolest thing. I just got to interact with Just Osborne, one of my all-time favorite Electric Wizard, So it's just those little things like that. Like, I never assume that's going to happen going into it. If he had never said a word to me, just signed it, and said I got to say thank you and walk out, that'd have been fine.
Yeah.
Those little added bonuses, that's so cool.
Here's a weird kind of story.
Please.
Playing in bands has kind of offered me an opportunity to be around people way more in the known entertainment world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we played a show. I'm not even gonna detail who it was, but I played a show at the Echo.
Okay.
Right. And for all intents and purposes, it was a sold out show because that's what they had told us. I got to see my band's name on the marquee.
Right on.
And it was cool, right?
Hell yeah.
But with being able to play the show, that meant you had access to the green room, And before we even went on, I was just dying of thirst. So I asked the bartenders if they could, give me some water or something.
Right.
And they were like, yeah, we'll give you water, but you're playing. You can go up to the green room and there's drinks up there for you. There's actually food up there for you as well.
Right on. It's good to be the king.
Well, yeah, right. So I made my way up there and I could not open the door because I heard people in there.
Mm.
In my head, it's like, oh, that's the headlining band. Mm. So I didn't go in.
I got you.
Because I was so fucking nervous, right?
Yeah, no, I understand.
And I've always kind of felt that way. Like, just because I'm playing a show, don't bug them.
I hear you.
Because the headlining band was on tour. Maybe they don't want to meet the opening band. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I can't chance it. I'm the type of person who gets super nervous around people who are way more known than I am. Just because, again, what am I gonna say? Even with despite my blathering on this podcast, even with non-celebrity people, I am not the life of. I've been known to wear a lampshade from time to time, but I am not the life of the party. I do not show up and hey, everybody, how's it going? And talk to every single person. I'm not antisocial. He's got a lampshade for every day of the week.
I'm not antisocial by any stretch of the imagination. Right. It's just I am shy. So, if you first meet me, I may not say a whole heck of a lot to you. Not because I don't want to. I'm awkward in that situation. Well, now add to it, oh my God, you're this hero who's been on a poster on my wall or has been. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah. Like the idea that I'm going to walk into this green room and be like, hey guys, how's it going? Hey, I'm just getting the water.
I'm just one of y'all.
Yeah.
Hey,
have a good show out there. All right, guys, rock and roll.
See you guys up on stage.
Yeah,
right.
right. Oh, what are you tuning to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
oh my God,
I hear you. Even though, I see this from afar as somebody who, especially with your current band, it is neat to see the camaraderie. A lot of times there's that instant like, oh, if you're playing tonight and we're playing tonight, for the most part.
Yeah.
There is this immediate like, cool, we're on the same level to a degree. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of too much rock star arrogance in that.
Right.
So
yeah.
that's always cool, and it's like you have an in. If you walked in with an instrument, like okay, cool, But yeah, like I said, I think this just really comes down to is always, as I've said many times, always remembering these people are human beings, despite what art they may have made or whatever. Being respectful, and that goes the other way too. As the rock star, just be respectful. I don't, and again, look, we all have bad days, and sometimes we can't be respectful because whatever's going on in our lives or whatever, and we have a bad day. I get that part too, and I do think that for the most part, there is mutual there. But when you start adding these people, they ruin it for the rest of us. Mm-hmm. When you're there as an autograph hound, or this is all about money for you to sell these somewhere else, you're going to make it so that, these people are going to go like, you know what, I'm not doing this shit anymore, for fans who just want to say thank you and shake a hand. I
also, there's a big part of it, I think, started with the whole TMZ culture.
Oh, for sure.
With the what are they called? I just forgot the name. What are those folks called?
Paparazzi.
Paparazzi.
Yes.
Paparazzo.
Yeah.
Where they've come up with ways of getting you to interact with them.
Yes.
By obviously finding out about your personal life,
right.
asking you details that maybe they shouldn't be asking you about,
and trying to be combative just to get you to go crazy on them, so they get a story out of it.
And I know I'm shouting at a bigger evil here, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like if we could find a way, here's the hopeful part of this this episode. If we could find a way of going back and kind of redoing it, where we don't put that much credence into these people doing what they've been doing for the past who knows how many years. Right.
The celebrity culture that surrounds them, that we put them on these pedestals. But then oddly, like you say with the TMZ thing, we also tear them down.
We tear them down. And we love tearing
them apart.
Because otherwise, if we didn't, TMZ wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
It would not be a thing. So... and again, because there's no rules or regulations on how to approach a person you admire, and there's no rules or regulations that you're handed when you're like, I'm going to become a fan of this thing, right? It's tough. I know it's tough. I know it's hard to kind of go back on things that you've probably done for most of your life, especially if you're an older person like we are.
Yes.
And you've been doing things a certain way, and not that we have expectations, but... we could certainly look at some of the stuff we've done or not done and say, maybe I won't be like that the next time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the guy's eating. How about you leave him alone?
Yeah.
It's like that sort of thing. Like those are simple, respectful things. Like the guy's with his family and they're they're just eating at a restaurant. Maybe not the time to ask for an autograph.
Right.
But that doesn't mean at the same time, if you're passing by his table on your way out or her table and you just say, "Hey, big fan," and walk away. I don't think they would mind that at all.
Not at all.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
But you're not interrupting. You're like, hey, big fan. By the way, I know you're entertaining your family. Selfie? Can we get a little?
Exactly, right.
Hey, bring the kids on in. Oh, by the way, I need 6 other photos. Let's get a group shot. Let's get.
Hey, you kids want to call me uncle?
Yeah, right. I think that's really it. It is simple. You're right. I don't know that there are total rules, but I think just rules of humanity ultimately.
Ultimately,
just like you say, and it's just. It is the celebrity culture, and again, combined with we feel this connection to these people, but we forget. The weird ones to me are like with like actors. Like I've heard people say things. There's a guy, I hate to say this, I'll just say, there's a guy I know who one time told me how disappointed he was to hear Ray Liotta being interviewed saying that he had never been in a fight. And he thought, but dude, he's the guy from Goodfellas. He's an actor.
Yeah.
What do you like? By the way, he was the acting kid. You were the jock. You probably would have beat him up if this was high school.
Right.
Like, they're doing pretend.
What's that called? That's called something.
I mean, I can think of a few things, but I don't think it's actually that. But yeah,
it's called something like
stupidity.
No, it's like you have. It's a type of relationship that people have with these entertainers
Yes.
that they don't know. It's called
I
something.
know. I think I'm again. I know what you're saying. It's a weird thing that we think because we see them doing this in a movie or on a TV show, we therefore think that they are capable of doing these other. Well, without getting too political, we watched a guy pretend to be a businessman and pretend to hire celebrities, and we thought we could make him president. So it's just like that whole thing is like it's constant. Like, look, these people, you do not have a real relationship with them.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Even if they are, and especially in music that we're particularly into, when you get lower into it, we connect more with them.
Sure.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But the connection to a degree, and I hate to use this word, but maybe there's a better one, but I can't think of it, is superficial to some degree.
Sure.
It doesn't mean we're going to be friends just because you wrote a lyric that touched my heart or a riff that makes me want to jump in the air. You know what I mean? And remembering that, but still being appreciative of that and saying to the person, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of it. And so like, yeah, the detachment sometimes people have from these things. Another guy I know was like mad at a show that he loved because he found out the lead guy is actually gay. But in the show, he's this straight dude banging the, bejesus out of women. You're like, well, he's an actor.
Right.
Like, I hate to break it to you, but Schwarzenegger's not actually a commando.
Yeah,
you know
right.
what I mean? Like,
He's not actually a barbarian.
no, he's really not. Actually, he's German. So it's just like, or Austrian, I guess.
Austrian.
But you know what I mean? It's like, Sean Connery's not a sub-commander.
Right.
You know what I mean? Nor does he live forever because he has a
And
sword.
he's not Russian.
No, it's just, you know what I mean? And it's just like, and yet we have this because we connect so much to art.
Sure.
I get it, but I also don't understand, and maybe what it is, the thing you're thinking of is part of that, And again, I think that interferes with it a lot too, because people see these people beyond what they actually are. And then it gives them carte blanche to just treat them however they want.
Yeah. Again, I know there's a term. If anybody out there can think of it, please.
I'm sure when this is all over, we'll be driving home and yell it super
we're like,
loud.
oh
like
my
we-
God.
yeah.
That's what yeah. I mean, there are, of course, different experiences for everybody out
Absolutely.
there. What do you folks think about this type of interaction with our entertainers?
What are some of your interactions? Positives, negatives?
Yeah, positive,
please.
negatives. We would love to hear about them. And this is something I think we can even come back to a later date
sure.
and time, because I would definitely love to share some of the positive experiences. Maybe some of have you had any negative experiences?
I would say the most negative was the Ozzy one. But that maybe says more about me than it does Ozzy. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
It's just to say my expectation was I had done this before. I would get to go to the table. Even if I couldn't, don't touch Ozzy. He doesn't, that's fine. Just to say, I love you, Ozzy. Appreciate it, But to be 3 feet back where it just really feels you're detached, well, then what's this? This is in the meet and greet.
Yeah.
I could have just mailed it to him and he could have just signed it and gave
Right,
it back to me.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
That would probably be the only negative one I would say was negative. For the most part, I've had very positive. And I think that has to do, not to toot my own, I think it has to do with the way I approach it. Because I know at no time, I don't have any illusion of how this is going to go.
Yeah.
Like, the last time I met Danzig, 3 or 4 people before me, they had 50, can I get a hug? And I'm got, can I ask you questions for my podcast? And on and on and on.
Yeah.
And he was very nice about it. I think it's a game that he plays where they tell you what the rules are. He has a bodyguard who goes, no. And then he gets to go, hey, it's cool.
Sure.
Don't
Yeah,
let,
yeah.
And it's like, he always gets to look like the good guy in this.
Right.
Which is absolutely brilliant. It really is. And I just remember going like, I have this thing to sign. I'm just going to have him sign it. He did. I said, hey, man, big fan for a long time. I really love everything you've done, man. And thank you for all the great music over the years. And he said, hey, man, thank you very much. And I turned to walk away. And he said, hey, by the way, I got a new album that's going to be dropping here in about 6 months. I said, cool, man. And he's like, I think you're going to love it. I said, I have no doubt. And I just turned around and walked away. You know what I mean? And it wasn't because I thought I was cool. Believe me, I was shaking like a leaf inside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yes, I would have, again, as I've said many times, yes, I would have loved to have been like, wow, that was one of the coolest interactions I've ever had with a fan. Get his name and number, tell him where I live.
Bring
and
that man back.
Right. He will tour with me. You will play on my next album. Of course I would love that. But I have no illusions of any of that. Yeah. So for the most part, I've always had positive, but I think that's because that's how I approach it.
It's funny with him,
Please.
met him many times. One of them was at the now gone Shrine Auditorium conventions.
Oh, nice.
They used to have like a movie and comics convention every month, kind of. And he'd show up all the time.
Right on.
But it was a thing where like he's here to shop.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
Right?
Yeah.
But I remember one time I went out of my way just to approach the booth he was at. They had a bunch of Japanese toys, and not because of him,
right.
but I was into some of the Japanese toys that were there.
Sure.
And I'm looking at them, and I look over to my right, and there he is, right? In his little 5'4" glory, right? And I'm like, these are pretty cool, right? He's like, yeah, I always come to this one, They always have the best stuff.
Right.
And then I got really nervous, and I hightailed it out of there.
Right.
And I told everybody I knew at that time, like, hey, I just saw Danzig at the Shrine Auditorium,
Right.
Again, not a negative experience, but that's usually how it goes with me because I get incredibly fucking shy.
Same.
And at some point, I start just getting embarrassed of myself, right?
I hear you. I hear you 100%.
But yeah, like I would love to know if anybody's had some cool experiences meeting people that they, admire their work. Not necessarily you need to look up to them, but, just admire their work. Or some negative experiences,
And I know we have some people who listen who are in bands, different levels of, for lack of a better word, fame. Have you ever had any interactions of people coming to autographs or, thinking that you somehow owe them because they're your number one fan? I mean, I'd love to know these kind of interactions. How did you handle it? How did that go for you?
Going on that last thing there.
Please.
My wife Amy and I were going to a showing of Conan the Barbarian and Destroyer out in the Egyptian Theater.
Right on.
I was already blind at this point, so I of course depend on the people I'm around to kind of let me know what's happening around me. So we're walking down the street, and in front of us, walking in our direction, was a person wearing one of my old band's hoodies.
Right.
And she got really excited because she's like, "Oh, you should go say hi and let them know that's your band." Right. But what I did instead was I hid behind her, and for those who don't know, I'm a lot bigger than my wife, so that was an incredible feat on my part, hiding behind her. But yeah, like I didn't say it because I don't know that they want to talk to me either, and that's just me, that's, again, I don't think I'm at any level of importance outside of anywhere actually, because even my little dog hates me. But yeah, so I was stoked that they had the hoodie in the first place because we didn't sell too many of those when they were around. But it was cool seeing it out in the wild, as it were. But at the same time, I was like, oh shit, they're coming my way, and I need to disappear as fast as possible, right? And I looked back at that and I was like, I hope I didn't come across like an asshole who was just hiding because I didn't want to speak to anybody. But I hope they were able to recognize that when the blind guy blushed and tried hiding behind this little girl, this tiny woman.
Right.
It wasn't because of anything they did. It was all me.
Yeah.
But again, if you got a story, share it with us. We'd love to know. And with that, what have you been watching?
I actually got to see two movies. One was Den of Thieves 2.
Now, who's in this?
So Den of Thieves, the main character in these two movies is the guy from 300. I cannot think of his name now.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Even though I will watch anything he's in. And Ice Cube's son.
Okay.
So the original Den of Thieves, I like to call it a poor man's Heat.
That's
right.
That's
what
right.
it is.
Yeah. Doesn't it take place like in San Pedro out here?
Pretty much, yes.
Right.
It is Southern California in many regards. The cops themselves are clearly, exterior shots are of San Pedro. Apparently, this was actually shot in Atlanta. So, yes. But it is meant to be there. LAPD, Special Forces, whatever fucking thing they are, cops.
Yeah.
I don't say that necessarily as a pejorative. I did enjoy it. I like Not all action films have to be Heat. I like a good cheesy Friday night action film that just has good action. You know, Gerard Butler. I remember.
Butler.
Yes, I very much like him. I will watch just about anything with him. I've seen all of his Olympus Has Fallen movies and so forth.
Yeah.
The first one was good. It's a good action film. Again, it's very much Heat on a basic scale, but had a nice little twist at the end. Part 2 is the idea that he is the guy who got away with it in the first one has now moved on to Europe, and now Gerard Butler has found him and is going to become a bad guy, and they're going to rob shit together. I enjoyed it for the most part, though I will say I think Den of Thieves, the original, was one of these things where you kind of don't know that you're about to capture something. You know what I mean? It gets its own little kind of underground following and gets a buzz, and people are discovering it and enjoying it, but you never set out for that.
Right.
So trying to recreate that with a second one, you know, you lose some of the magic of it. You know what I mean? Again, some really great action scenes and stuff in it. I very much enjoyed, you know what I mean? But, you know, I mean, I don't feel like I wasted my time, but you know, the first one was just better. You know, this one was, like I said, if you enjoy a good action film, you can just kind of turn your brain off and just rock and roll with it. Yeah, they're fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. The other one that my wife and I just actually watched last night was Best Picture winner, Anora. We did our best to go, look, I'm not going to hold that against them that they won Best Picture or anything like that, because, you know, you have no control over that.
Was
People
this
vote.
the Sean Baker? Is that
yes,
his name?
it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I will say entertaining.
Okay.
Did not hate it. I thought the lead character, she was very good in it.
What's it about?
People would say a modern Cinderella story to a degree. Okay. To a degree it is. She is a stripper.
Okay.
Who at some point some Russian oligarch's kid shows up and essentially says, why don't you stick around with me for a week and we'll go to Vegas, while in Vegas says, why don't we get married?
Okay.
And then the rest of the film is his parents are flying from Russia to make sure that the marriage gets annulled, and his handlers here in this country are trying to find him and get this marriage annulled.
All right.
Look, Best Picture in general, well, as far as I was concerned, Dune 2 would have been Best Picture for me. But I do feel like, you know, all of this is subjective. As we talk with like Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, stuff like this, when you're voting on these things, who knows why people decide or whatever. I would say not a bad film at all. I don't feel like I wasted my time. I got to see it. I will say it worked. The only reason I watched it is because it won Best Picture, and I thought, well, then, okay, I got to check this thing out. Like, otherwise, I saw the previews for this thing, and I went, not for me. I'm good. Moving on. There are parts of it that I really, really enjoyed, but a lot of it to me was just kind of like, it's Pretty Woman but we're going to get gritty. She's not, you know, we're going to show her having sex. We're going to show her naked and so on and so forth. It's not going to be the romantic PG-13 comedy. Right. It's going to be the rated R, sad story to some degree. Some very good performances, though. I will say that. The people in it do a fantastic job. Yeah. There's even some light comedy in it. There's parts where you can really laugh. I think that's the part my wife and I enjoyed the most, in the middle there where they're looking for the kid so they can take him to the judge and get it annulled. That was probably the best part of the movie, quite frankly. I just, you know, I don't want to hold it against it because it's not fair on something that they don't get to decide one way or the other.
Right.
I can't imagine this was the best. I haven't seen all the ones that were nominated. But I just don't think this was the best picture of the year. But a good film that, if it's something that piqued your interest, check it out. I don't think you'll hate it at all. You know?
I listened to a radio show in the morning, and Sean Baker came on the show and, you know, talked about it a bit. And just the way he spoke about it kind of interested me, but I still didn't really get a full grasp of what the movie was about, you know? And I don't know that it's necessarily on like our watch list or to watch list at home.
And again, admittedly, it worked. Okay. Because it won Best Picture is the only reason. As you know, I've told you this. Every Saturday I go on YouTube and Rotten Tomatoes will play you the new trailers of the upcoming movies. I do this every Saturday. It's almost like a ritual. Sometimes I enjoy previews more than I do movies, to be quite honest with you. I saw the previews for this movie and I went, it's not for me. Yeah. This is not something that Aaron would necessarily watch, you know. and yet it won Best Picture, and I thought, really? And the buzz, I thought, well, maybe I'm missing something here. What could it hurt to check out? I pay for Hulu. Fuck it, it's on Hulu.
Right.
You know? And again, I don't hate it. And if I'm being completely honest, maybe if it hadn't won Best Picture, I wouldn't have watched it. But maybe if it hadn't won Best Picture, maybe I would have actually enjoyed it more.
We said this before where, and this might be something we explore later on.
Please.
How many movies or how many things that have won awards for being the best of actually are deserving of this?
Yes.
I mean, because ultimately these award shows are commercials for these products, right?
There's a stroke fest for the entire Hollywood, just to say, look how we are. And then when you have a movie that is very positive of the sex worker industry, and they get to congratulate themselves on look how far we've come.
And
look how hip and cool we are because we made Best Picture of a movie that explores the sex worker. And it's just like, but was it the best movie of the... And again, that is a subjective thing.
We've said this before about Driving Miss Daisy.
Right.
How many in conversation now? How many times has that come up with anybody? And it won Best Picture, right?
Yes, and as I've told like I was saying to my wife and my daughter when we were discussing this, it's like, in some ways, none of this matters, right? Because it's just awards. But in other ways, it does. If these are historical documents, and I use that term loosely, but still, at some point, there's going to be a generation that goes, Driving Miss Daisy, I've never heard of that movie. I've never heard anybody talk about it.
Yeah.
But then again, it was 1995. Maybe I've never heard of any of these movies. What else was nominated? Pulp Fiction?
Yep.
What the fuck?
Yep.
How did that not? You know what I mean? So it's like, they do matter. It's like, that's why everybody goes, Crash won the Best Picture? Nobody's talking about that white people who go, we cured racism movie.
Right.
Nobody's talking about that movie, And I've seen Crash. It is a good movie, but it's not a Best Picture by any stretch of the imagination. And again, these are this may be an episode unto itself, just to discuss, awarding, like you said. It's also not fair to the person making art to say, well, I'm going to judge you because they gave you Best Picture. Well, I didn't say it was the Best Picture. Right. They said it was the Best Picture.
Yeah.
It isn't a bad movie at all. It is a good movie.
Sure.
I didn't hear anybody talking about it until it won Best Picture, though.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's just like, having said that, again, it was good. If it interests you in any way, shape, or form, I definitely recommend it. I think you'll see some really outstanding performances by people in it. It's a little longer than it needs to be. I will say that. Could have shaved off probably a good 20, 30 minutes.
Okay.
The other one the last one, I should say, that we started to watch, but I'm an old man and fell asleep. It's on HBO called The Parenting. Gay couple rent out a little house that a family gets murdered in by a demon that they are not aware of. They go
that classic tale, right?
That old thing. I know you're thinking, I already seen this. But more importantly, it was because of who's in it. Edie Falco, the dad from Succession, and he's the Scottish guy.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, Hannibal Lecter.
Yes, the original Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah,
exactly. Also Braveheart's uncle who comes and
That's
gets him and takes
him away.
Great actor. Dean Norris from Total Recall, from Breaking Bad. Yes. And Lisa Kudrow, who, in my opinion, is the only one worthwhile from that shitty show Friends. And the gay couple of guys, I don't know either one of them. And then Parker Posey is the caretaker of the land. So they go there to stay, and this demon shows up and starts possessing their family, and things start going awry. But it's very much a comedy and a kind of making fun of the Conjurings and stuff like that. But I just thought, all these great people in it, there's some funny scenes. Let's check it out. I got about half hour into it before I fell asleep, but I enjoyed the shit out of the half hour. We do plan to watch it again. So I would definitely recommend it if you have HBO. It looks really, again, it's an hour and a half. You're in, you're out. So even if you know, but yeah, that's, other than that, like I say, always the usual, some YouTube rabbit holes or, a movie I've seen 1,000 times,
Yeah.
Yourself, how, anything?
We took in a couple of comedy specials. One of them I really enjoyed.
Right on.
One of them I did not.
Okay.
So the one I did not enjoy was the latest Andrew Schultz.
Yeah.
So I didn't know who this dude was, right? It's kind of it is tired jokes, tired comedy, whatever. At this point, I don't know. You can kind of see where the joke is going.
Yeah.
And while I did kind of chuckle to myself a couple of times, it wasn't really anything that I would be like, oh, let's go see this dude, like.
Yeah, my only really I catch him every now and again on some like Instagram reels or something like that.
Yeah.
My biggest experience with him was on the Tom Brady. Back to him, your favorite football
My
player
favorite
that,
guy,
that you don't know.
That dude.
He's a quarterback. Yeah, he did the Tom Brady roast, and I thought he killed. I thought he did a great job there. And that was my first real experience with that. But that is also one of those places where being mean or over the top is also kind of expected, and you're doing that. But some of the clips that I've seen of him, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, where I go like, that's a funny joke, but punching down again, man. And
and it's, lest I be called a bleeding heart or whatever.
No, I hear you.
I'm not like that at all, but it's like we've heard these already, And,
Yeah.
and for the time when we heard them, maybe we laughed at them, but
yeah,
we're kind of beyond that, right? Like,
and I've heard the criticism on him a lot of times. I guess he's got a very wildly popular podcast, though I've never heard of it because I personally am a fan of the rehearsal room. But apparently, he's got a very popular podcast. On that podcast, he has people there that are called people of color or minorities. And he seems to use that sometimes as then that makes it so that I can say these things.
Okay.
I know that Shane Gillis, there's a however we deal fame anymore. I don't know what is famous or isn't, to be completely honest with you. But I know that I've seen that go around where he was making jokes about people with mental handicap.
Yeah.
And Shane Gillis was on, and for those who don't know, Shane Gillis has relatives that I believe, have mental handicaps. He also runs a restaurant, right? That I guess employs people with this or something like that.
Yeah.
I know he's a big supporter of that. He got really offended, and he called this Andrew guy out. Like, hey, man, what the fuck, bro? That's not funny. What I see are people enjoy. That's what I see.
Yeah.
And you think that you can make fun of that? And he's like, oh, okay, pal, you're getting all woke on me or whatever. He's like, no, it's not that, bro. Like, that's shitty. What are you doing? And I think, wow, when Shane Gillis is for a reputation, whether earned or otherwise, when Shane Gillis is calling you out, bro, maybe you need to relax a little bit.
Right. Yeah. And the way he spoke, and I guess the way he was dressed, which Amy told me he was kind of looking like Christopher Moltisanti from Sopranos.
Well, he also kind of looks like a guy who ties women to railroad tracks back in the day.
Yes, that's another thing. Like he has the mustache, I guess, right?
Like if you told me it was not Mario's, who's Mario's enemy?
Wario.
Yeah. If you told me it was his like brother, I would go, that's tracking.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's the one that we watched.
Yeah, bummer.
I was just like, But we watched the new Bill Burr.
Oh, okay.
That one was funny.
Okay, good.
That
Good.
one was funny. And
Good
he goes through the whole talking about his family, which I know turned off a lot of people. And actually, one of the ones when he was having kids, I did not enjoy.
Okay.
But this one was funny. Like there was a lot of moments where I was laughing, and there are parts of it where I've read comments online where like, oh, he's too woke now, But again, what are you complaining about? Right?
I don't.
What are you really complaining about?
I've not seen his comedy shift in any way. I think just people have moved away from him.
Yeah, which fair, fair
which
enough.
Again, if he doesn't make you laugh, then don't listen to it. I don't give a shit about that.
Right.
But
and it always comes down to that.
Yeah, right? I'm not shocked when he makes the jokes about killing CEOs.
Yeah,
like that seems right when he says, "Why can't a guy make 40 hour, work 40 hours and support himself? What the fuck is the problem with that?"
Yep.
And if that makes you woke, well, Jesus Christ, I mean,
so I've always enjoyed him.
Yeah, always.
Even when he was in his earlier days, when a lot more scandalous, whatever.
Yeah.
Hilarious. He's always been hilarious, and this one was funny.
This is on Netflix. This one.
On Hulu actually.
Oh, Hulu. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
So it's
Good,
on
good,
Hulu.
good.
I think
I
it's
will
called
check it
something like. You know what? I'm horrible with titles.
No, I'll just yell into the Alexa. Just say Bill Burr. I'm sure she'll say I got it.
Be like, you're too woke.
Yeah.
So
sure thing, wimp.
yeah, right.
Here's your cuck.
So the other thing, I know I spoke about this a little before we started recording.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't necessarily a thing I watched, but I'm reading a book that I've reread before. It's called Not a Nation of Immigrants by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. And as you can probably surmise from the name of this, it's not a comfortable read because it does shed the light on some stuff that's been held, I think, from the public before.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's very topical, especially with what's going out there right now. So I definitely recommend it for people who are so inclined. But yeah, that's I'm a big book.
Yeah, Nick's our reader. Aaron can barely read, so he doesn't.
and I listen to books now, of course, because I'm
Yeah.
blind and I don't know Braille because that's a whole ass other language that I'm not gonna learn. So I take a lot of books in. I usually try to do like 2 books a week.
Right on.
And I tend to go back and reread, or re-listen to books I've already, engaged with before. And this is one of those ones that kind of stuck with me ever since I first heard about it. So,
Right on.
I definitely recommend it.
Right on.
Yeah. What have you been listening to?
Well, I've continued to go down my Merle Haggard, and that's still a nice deep well, plenty to listen to. Let's see. Last time we spoke, Swing Kids was something I was really getting into.
Yeah.
So, of course, thank you to Last FM, who does the "If you like this, you may also enjoy." Turned me on to a band called Heroin. Also out of San Diego, apparently very big on the emo scene.
Okay.
I guess. To be honest, emo, I don't know much about that scene in any way, shape, or form. I
Yeah.
remember hearing and I'm sure I'm gonna get, people, what the fuck? But like Dashboard Confessional is what I always thought was.
That's a version of emo.
Okay,
There's a whole earlier version of it too.
like Rites of Spring.
Rites of
band.
Spring,
Okay,
Nation
maybe
of
I'm a little more
Ulysses.
familiar than I
Yeah,
thought.
yeah.
Okay.
Moss Icon.
Yeah, that was another one that was recommended. Didn't enjoy that one as much. Very much enjoyed the heroin thing. I thought that I'm into heroin. But very much enjoyed it. I was really getting into that. Once again, contacted a mutual friend, Barry, a guy who's very steeped in those bands. I told him, dude, again, what is in the water here? He's like, dude, you're like taking me down a deep well. He's like, yeah, man, I remember this, like heroin and this. And he said, and Pitchfork. And I was like, what's Pitchfork? Never heard of them other than the snooty little, reviewers. So I thought, okay, so let me type that in. And I was like, this is what's going to become Drive Like Jehu.
Yes. Yeah.
And that I've just had completely on repeat.
Nice.
The heroin one, as much as I dug it, I just immediately stopped listening. I had that thing just on repeat constantly.
Nice.
I'm really loving that. Still some more Crowbar.
Not a bad thing.
I watched the interview with him recently, the guy from Nails, so I got back in. They're actually in the car right now. So, yeah, other than that, I'm trying to think if there were any more discoveries. No, other than that, just listening to the usuals.
All right.
How about yourself?
I've actually got quite a few this time.
Right on.
It started off with a death metal band called Shrine of Denial.
I think I know the name, but okay.
They put out an album recently called I Moloch.
Okay.
Which kind of like blackens death metal type stuff in there.
All right.
Fantastic.
Right
Fantastic production. The music is awesome. I could not stop listening to this album.
Right on.
Maybe like 3 times already since the last time we spoke. For some reason, I looked up a word that I didn't realize that a band existed with this name.
Okay.
But the word was Oblivion.
Okay.
I was thinking like, metal bands particularly like using these types of
Sure.
dramatic words and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So I was like, it's funny that I don't listen to any bands called Oblivion. And sure enough, there's a death metal band from the Bay Area. I think formed in maybe the later part of the 2010s.
Okay.
So they're still kind of newish.
Okay.
Really technical type stuff.
Right on.
I don't know any of their previous bands, but the album that I heard, I don't remember the name of, was really good.
Right on.
Then there was this band called Obscure Phoenix from Poland, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Kind of post-metal mixed with doom and, tribal-ish sounding stuff.
All right.
Really dramatic ambient parts in it. If you're familiar with like the Neurosis and the Amun-Ra's of the world, this will definitely, kind of scratch the itch for that.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Another band called well, I don't know what they're called, but it's spelled Aortes. So like Ortis or
Okay.
Aortis or something like that.
Sure.
On the similar vein as Obscure Phoenix, kind
Okay.
of. I think they have male, female vocals in there.
Okay.
But the music is fucking awesome.
Right
it's
on.
kind of almost reminiscent of Fall of Ephrafa.
Oh, okay.
You know, so like if you dig like that kind of crusty post metal sound, this is definitely up your alley.
Okay.
What was the other one? Oh, because I've been seeing more posts of these folks on social medias. There's a band called His Hero Is Gone,
Oh, yes.
which, you know, has folks from Tragedy.
Right.
So I went back and I listened to 19 Counts of Arson,
Fuck yeah.
which is
Classics.
fucking great album.
Yeah, yeah.
And
They
then,
only have the two, right?
The two, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then Amy reminded me of Dysphere from Sweden.
Oh, right.
She recently put up a story about her hiking trip that she went on. And
I like that
used-
fear.
Not Dysphere, but that fear.
Sorry, it was hanging there.
This is actually better than Animal Schultz, so I'm cool with it.
But
So I was listening to Dysphere and His Hero Is Gone, and you know, a bunch of stuff like that. And then also, my beloved Tangerine Dreams Rubicon
Nice.
recently had I believe a 35
Oh,
year
shit.
anniversary.
Okay.
So I've been kind of drowning in that for
Right
a
on.
couple days. So yeah, that's
Well, you reminded me, because I know we both were listening to it when you said His Hero's Gone, the new Wake album.
oh yes,
Phenomenal.
dude, The Return of Magic,
Dude.
Oh my god, what a great fucking album.
They are on a 3-album streak like I have not. I mean, between that, Rest, and Voices of Omens.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
8 years, right, before
Dude,
the last one?
Yeah. Unfortunately, but wow.
again.
Wow.
None of the magic that's returning was lost.
None.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
I was so blown away by that because their kind of progressive epic sludge is so unique to what they do, and yet you just felt like you're like, God, Voices of Omen was so good, and then Rest was so much better. Well, where can we go? Well, I'm about to show you, and wow.
Hold my coat.
Yeah, exactly. Wake to this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, dude, unbelievable. That definitely going to be a year-end album for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when it came out,
Yeah,
I saved it for the weekend,
for sure.
and I was listening to it. And I'm like, holy shit, this is fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
They're a deserved band deserves more praise,
Yeah.
more credit. I know we have friends who are big fans of them, but it's just like I'd like to see more people
Get into them.
Yeah, for sure.
One other one.
Please.
The latest album by 16.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you know, it's sludgy.
Yeah.
Kind of punk type stuff as well.
Yeah.
But they've
Some
got
local heroes out here, man.
well, San Diego guys.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they've got a song in there that's. I want you to listen to it.
Okay.
Because when I listen to it, it has echoes of like typo negative almost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
They. I think every album they explore their musicianship a bit more than the previous ones.
No doubt.
On this one, they get a little bit into more the dramatic flair, you know.
Hey.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool when I was like, wow, this is out of left field for these guys, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's cool. It's pretty cool. And again, don't ask me the names of the titles unless I specifically listen to it over and over again, right? But yeah, the latest 16,
Okay,
Our
cool.
Wake.
Cool. Yeah, the Wake one. Yeah, that one really. Wow.
Yeah.
Just really, I mean, they're just like I said. I think their 3-album streak that they're on right now is
Yeah,
pretty unprecedented in that genre, and they're just so unique in what they do. You know?
Yeah.
But
for
great
sure.
band. But yeah.
So check out any of these, and if you guys, again, as usual, any recommendations, we
Please.
welcome everything that you can throw at us. And we'll catch you next time.
Right on.
Hey, folks. Thank you so much for checking out the rehearsal room. We super appreciate you spending time with us. If you have any questions, comments, or want to yell at us for any of the takes we've expressed in any of these episodes, you can contact us by emailing us at therehearsalroompod@gmail.com. all one word, therehearsalroompod@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and now on Blue Sky. Also, if you have any recommendations for any movies or any bands you might want us to check out and give a listen to, feel free to send those in. We always accept submissions. Or if you have any shows coming up that you feel we might be interested in checking out, let us know and we'll give you guys a shout out. But thank you for checking us out, and we'll catch you next time.